Hi, I'm Bonnie Stewart from the University of Prince Edward Island in Canada. And I see hybridity as a way of seeing, and maybe a way of sometimes refusing to see the boundaries that otherwise govern how we go about the process of education and learning. Um, I came into open research and open pedagogy as a hybrid identity. I was a blogger, and my interest in social media and networks came actually from being a blogger and from immersion in those emerging and shifting networked conversations and wondering what that meant for sort of the gatekeeping structures of higher ed and academia. I also came back into academia and the idea of scholarship as an institutional hybrid. I was student, staff, and faculty throughout most of my PhD, so I was multiply situated. And I had this long professional history in higher ed, mostly as staff and as sessional faculty. But suddenly in the PhD, I found myself suddenly very much subject to these sort of student restrictions that sometimes delegitimated things that I knew or that did not allow me to speak. And this was amplified as my work in open and hybrid spaces on the internet sort of caught on. And I had the privilege of being in these really vibrant, leading edge conversations with leaders in my field about what was happening with hybridity and network learning and openness. But these conversations weren't always legible to people who saw me as a student in a small regional place. And so in my institution, that was sometimes challenging and destabilizing of people's internalized hierarchies. And to me, I think that destabilization is at the core of what I think of as hybridity. And that core impacts my teaching. It's probably one of the core ways that it does impact my teaching. In the technical sense, I haven't, by choice, taught a course without an online component since 2005. So I always, even when I'm teaching face-to-face courses, make sure that there is sort of an online space, whether an LMS or increasingly a more open option, where we have the opportunity to connect with each other outside of the times that we're together as a class. But all of this hybridity that's part of my identity impacts my pedagogy much more deeply than that as well, because my hybridity has had me sort of situated in many spaces that are sometimes conflicting. And so I see myself as a learner, as someone who's always kind of navigating these multiple spaces. And therefore, as an adult learner who teaches adult learners and who are also navigating their different spaces and making connections around what those spaces may be and how we see them has very much changed my teaching away from any sort of content focus to much more process focus. And it's encouraged and challenged me to make my teaching as open and as equitable and as accountable to model the types of pedagogy and andragogy and hudagogy that I profess in my teaching. So I see myself as hybrid and my students as hybrid. And I really actually see part of my role as an educator as to challenge some of the boxes that we sometimes put around identity and learning that I feel get in the way of navigating new ideas and navigating what it means to think productively, even within some of the structured and structuring limitations of both institutions and networks. I don't see either as ideal spaces. I see both as bringing something to each other, and hybridity as an approach that allows us to try to make the most and most decent, most humane things that we can out of connecting with each other in our learning processes. So I'm really looking forward to EduPlop and to working with everybody when I can.